Hey everybody, welcome to Let's Just Into Discord. Tonight is not a pre-show, tonight is a serious Sunday. Today we're going to be talking about parasocial relationships and things like that. Nick should be joining us later, but right now we've got Addie, Rimshee, and Sir's watching.
And I'm mostly just here as furniture. I'm here to run the gear.
Yeah, and
I'm pretty sure this is the inaugural Serious Sunday.
Yeah, this is technically episode 1 of Serious Sunday, but it's episode 3 of the Serious series.
Yeah, because usually it's Serious Saturday, but due to scheduling conflicts, it was better to do it today.
Yep. You know, really they're just SS episodes. You know, any day that starts with an S, we'll do a serious blank.
Yep.
That didn't come out wrong at all.
No.
How could it?
I know, in no way did I do that on purpose at all, either.
Oh, of course not. We don't have self-awareness here.
Yeah. Hey, Canuck. And everybody else that's watching.
Yeah, so not necessarily that this is going to be like a, super serious or like downer fest. It's just not going to have the same level of levity that we normally have on the show.
There's gonna be actual discussion about serious things, not
Yeah.
something. I don't know. I'm furniture today.
It's a more grounded experience. Also, Addie is back.
Yeah, hi. Are we live right now?
Yes,
yeah,
we
we're
are.
right.
Oh, okay, yeah. That first one was just, it was like a downer topic, but like I don't want anyone to get the idea that like all the serious Saturdays are going to be downers. It's less like jokes and stuff. Well, there's room for jokes and all that, but like it's less like it's more pointed. It's going to be on like a topic that like one or more of us finds like really important that we want to talk about.
Yeah. For those of you that tuned in 2 Fridays ago, Addie went on a bit of a rant at the end of the stream, so we're just expanding on that.
It's actually
And I'm
been
looking
quite
for
a while
mods on
since
Nexus.
the last one.
Hmm.
'Cause I'm pretty sure the last one on the foster care stuff was like last year.
Yeah, well, the last one was on
Yeah.
nostalgia.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, that was fun.
I completely missed that one.
And Nick should be showing up in about 5 minutes.
No, you showed up for the nostalgia one.
Did I?
Yeah, because we and I've completely forgotten what the show was now.
It was about
Nickelodeon Guts. We talked about Guts during that show,
yeah.
Oh, okay.
among other things.
Yeah, it was discussion about how it kind of started out about how Thundercats Roar was just a horrible re-release, an
Ooh.
attempt to grab. Yeah,
Yeah.
and we talked about how Teen Titans Go was shit. And
I will not let you disparage Teen Titans Go. You're wrong. You're just
compared
upset
to
that
the
it
original
wasn't
Teen Titans,
it wasn't meant to be. That's not what we're here for
Yeah.
today.
We're immediately going to be on a tangent if we start that.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to check out those episodes, they're over on the YouTube
Yeah.
channel, youtube.com/Let'sJustSaintsDiscord.
and
there's a
I
link
corrected
down
the corrected the title, so just search for Serious Saturday or Serious. Well, just search for Serious and you'll find the
No,
Serious Saturday
There's gonna
episodes.
be a lot of Joker videos if you just take it serious.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I meant on our channel. On our channel, you go to our channel, you search
On the
Serious,
channel
and you'll find them.
specifically.
Yeah.
But YouTube fucking algorithm.
I don't know, the algorithm.
Go watch the Spiffing Brit and learn how to just give yourself so many likes. I might do that with this episode.
All
All
right.
right. So,
Should we get into it?
yeah.
Yeah. First things first. What is a parasocial relationship? Parasocial relationships That was a term coined in the 1950s to describe the phenomenon of people having sort of an obsession or feeling like they were friends with characters on television. It existed before then with books, but now that they can put an actual person in that place, much like Gelcourt Schuler with Brent Spiner is a perfect example of this.
Yeah.
Um,
When you can put a face to it.
Yeah, you can put a face to it. You can know more of their personality, how they talk, how they walk, things like that. Now we are in a current age of live streaming, which causes more of an issue. Because now that person can talk back to you through the chat.
Yeah. It
And
used to
so
be
that-
just, oh, I know this person because I've seen all their videos and I read all the books about them. They're my friend.
yeah.
No, you're fucking crazy.
The
Now it's
advent
become,
of-
oh, I've had conversations with them on live streams and they know me and I know them. And in reality, you go and say, hey, you know so-and-so? Who the fuck is that?
Yeah.
The advent of social media and simulcasting has vastly changed the dynamic in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
And I'm an example of an audience member of this because I caught the little parasocial relationship bug with Billy the Fridge and Ben Pie and shit like that. It's like, oh, I know so much about you guys. And then I met him a few times on top of that, and I'm like, okay, we're buds now. And then I have to remind myself, no, you're not.
So
No, you're not. Shut the fuck up.
you don't actually know these people.
You
Yeah.
you know them fairly well, but they do not know you.
Yeah.
Beyond your interactions online at best.
Or the
The other-
times that we've met in person.
Yeah. One thing that I'd like to add to that as well is I don't care if you've been like following someone's intimate live streams or whatever where they talk about life experiences they've had or what it was like for them growing up or whatever, blah blah blah. There's a lot of no matter how transparent your favorite internet personalities are, there's always stuff that they keep away from the public eye. And that's not to say that it's a nefarious thing or anything like that, but there's information that they're I just don't think it's relevant to bring that up, or that's a little too personal for me to share. No matter how much you think you know someone from one side of a computer monitor, you don't know that person on a personal level. You've got a pretty good idea of what they're like, but they're showing you not for any kind of again, they're not doing it to be fake or whatever, but they're showing you a cherry-picked version of themselves.
It's the basic human instinct of self-preservation.
Yeah. So don't it's really unhealthy to go, oh, I've gone on a journey with this person and they've shared all this personal information with me and other people in the audience, so I feel like I really know this person. It's but like Jables was saying before, but in a different way, if you walked up to them at VidCon or something, they would have no fucking idea who you are. You know all this stuff about them. They don't know a fucking thing about you. So if you just walk up and you start to act oh, hey, we're buddies, I know this about you, I know that about you, you have to understand how freaky that would be for them. To have a complete stranger be I know everything about you. You want to go get a beer? It's no, who the fuck are you?
Yeah,
it's like being a stalker without the... with more of... with a different mentality behind it.
Yeah, you may not mean anything by it, and you might not think that you come off as aggressive or anything, and you might not come off as aggressive, but no matter what, it does kind of come off as creepy. Especially if you're the kind of person that has a photographic memory about certain things they said, a little side thing they mentioned on a live stream from 3 years ago. If you bring that up to them and they might have forgotten that they even said it, that might be unnerving for that person. Be what? Even if I said it online, how do you remember something like that? That's it's a really uncomfortable position to be in.
Well, imagine the people that have kids too. Some stranger walks up and it's hey, how's your kid A, B, and C doing?
And it's
What?
just like,
do you-
why the fuck do you want to know?
Yeah,
All
we're at PAX right now. Let's keep this in the realm of the right now. I don't know you.
Yeah. Also, in the chat, Canuck has a good point. He says, however, the idea of relating to celebrity isn't always unhealthy. Sometimes we can, as an audience, learn a lot about ourselves through their journey. It's why we often mourn the death of a celebrity. That's a good point.
That's
not a
very
parasocial
different.
relationship to the same
Yeah.
degree,
Yeah.
at least.
This parasocial relationships are more like having the idea that the celebrity is your friend because you know so much
Yeah.
about them.
Yeah.
It's the idea that because you
familiar.
relate to them, they relate to you as well,
Mm.
which is not always the case.
Yeah.
In fact, it's often not the case.
Now,
Because you called out your name a few times in the live chat that they know who I am now.
yeah. It's like to like a less memey extent, especially because we're us and we're not someone like Pokimane. But like, if you paid $100 on a live stream for Pokimane to read your message or whatever, and she reads it, it's like, people are like, oh, she said my name. It's kind of like that whole thing where it's like, but I did want to touch on something else as well, because the idea for this stream today spawned from, as mentioned earlier, a little rant that I had at the end of a stream a couple weeks ago. And I want to preface everything I'm going to say tonight by stating that me talking about this, it's not, at least for me, it's not a matter of like I'm
Shaming
better than
anyone.
you. How dare you think you can talk to me just because like you watch my live streams or whatever. It's like it's not like that. It's not that I think I'm too good to talk to you or anything like that. It's just some people, myself included, are very we like to hide inside our shell. And we only
Addie,
come out every now and
fucking
then.
talk to you. Stop trying to talk to Addie. Get it? There.
No,
I'm joking.
don't derail me because my speech impediment's acting up really bad tonight. Like I only come out of my shell, like when I'm on a live stream like this. And if you want to talk to me in the chat, or like if we get into like a voice chat together, I'm all for that. But like once I leave this like social space, like once I like I log out of the voice chat, or like we're not live streaming anymore, unless it's a continuation of a conversation that we were having previously, it makes me really uncomfortable when people that I don't really know that well just like DM me. And I know that's been like a thing ever since like social media and like internet forums that have like a PM function and stuff have been a thing, that like a random person can just be like, hey, what's up, you seem cool. But it's like, I think it's become a bit more like mainstream, and for good reason lately, that you shouldn't feel entitled to somebody's privacy like that. Not that like you're like like breaching some kind of like a social contract or something like that, but like I think it's getting...
You should have no expectation of a response.
Yeah, like that's the thing. Like I had a lot of I have a lot of artist friends on like DeviantArt and stuff. And like people watch their art and they comment on their art and they critique their art. And because they have a back and forth in the comments of a specific art piece, some people start like DMing them on a personal level and be like, hey, what are you doing? Like I found out that you're in the same state as me. Do you want to hang out? And it's like sometimes some people respond well to that. Other people, I think rightly, a lot of people are like, this is kind of, like overstepping a boundary for me.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not like, it's one of those things where like it's not meant in like a confrontational way, but it's like I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to like promote my art or whatever. And yes, I know there's like a private messaging function, but that doesn't entitle you to a response from me.
I would equate it to you're hanging out at the bar, you get along with somebody really well, and then after they leave, you find their Facebook page and start DMing.
Yeah, that's a,
It'd be
Yeah,
one
that's
thing if they added you on Facebook while you were there, but once they leave, fucking let it go, motherfucker.
Yeah.
yeah.
Nick is now joining us. Nick Goros.
I was just about to say we have a Nick.
In the Wizard of Cosmo.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
I just wanted for one thing make sure like you weren't getting any bleed over from my mic.
No, it's all good.
Oh, sounds good here.
It's all bleeding.
Yeah, sorry I'm late. I was on my way back, and I have this this issue keeps coming up. I'll be walking down the street, and for whatever reason, like DoorDash, when they're trying to get into this ritzy ass luxury joint, they can never find a way in, so I always have to like be their guide, and I'm starting to think I deserve a discount or something.
Yeah, right.
For services rendered.
I will be your guide. Don't worry. You will find your way, and you will deliver your McDonald's.
Let's also be very clear. Canuck, you can DM me anytime, baby.
Yeah. So yeah, to go, sorry, I don't want to like monopolize the conversation, but like just to quickly touch on something I said earlier as well. There are people from the various servers like Nick's server and, you know, this Lesser Saint server and stuff like that who do DM me on a casual, regular basis. That's because we've had hours-long conversations together in like voice chats and, you know, like other, you know, like social media circles and things like that. We've gotten to know each other really well. If you just like catch a live stream that I'm on and we have like 3 or 4 interactions in the chat or something like that, that's not the same thing. You know, so like I don't want anyone to think that like some people get like special treatment or anything like that. I by no means am any like degree of like famous or celebrity, so it's not an ego thing. I don't think, you know, that like I'm special and only certain special people get to talk to me. It's just we have that kind of like that like next level of that like social media like interaction where now I'm comfortable talking privately to that person. So people like Canuck, people like Mickey Ficky and stuff like that. You know, I don't know. Yeah, like that's kind of where I'm getting at mainly. Sorry.
Well, I've had some myself. I've had some kind of strange experiences just on, you know, with this topic specifically.
Yeah,
there's been like, yeah. Well, I mean, it's the line between familiarity and, you know, friendship, for one thing, is something a lot of people do. Yeah, they seem to trip up on that. But you know, since you know Jables asked me to come on here, I've been given it a good amount of thought, and I think it comes down to if someone is a fan of a creator or a artist of any, you know, really any kind, right? They're naturally going to fill a lot of their time enjoying whatever sort of, let's say, media they put out. So if you're talking about a YouTuber, you basically got somebody sitting at your desk with you or in your living room or wherever you are on possibly a daily basis talking to you, and you get familiar with the sight of them and the sound of them and all of that. And when you couple that familiarity with if what they're doing, putting out, like, you know, their music, their comedy, their performances or writing or anything, if it speaks to the person on a personal level, which good art really, you know, should strive to do, then it sort of builds a sense of sort of, I guess, for lack of a better term, like intimacy there. Like there's a presumption of a bond.
Yeah.
And because of that, with social media, because you can reach out to just any old person, right? And if, you know, you get in contact with them, it's like, you know, if you get that interaction, a lot of these people, they already feel like they're connected to this person in some way. They feel that they know something about them because they expose what they think and feel and experience in whatever medium they're doing it in. And so like they've already felt like they've been sort of touched by something personal. Meanwhile, this other, on the other side of it, the performer artist themselves they don't even like half the time know who that person is. So like one interaction, all of a sudden it's just, holy shit, like, wow, all right, now we're buddies, that kind of shit.
Yeah, it's like once they get that like that validation that like the person that they like feel a connection with, and the person that they've been like having this one-sided bond from like binging all their content, or being like a dedicated like follower of their content, like never missing a stream or anything like that. Like once they get the validation of that person speaking directly to them through like a super chat response or something like that, sometimes that's enough. Like I was victim to this a little bit myself. Like Jables touched on earlier that like that was his experience with like Billy the Fridge and them, where when I first started watching you and like Jeff and them, like when you guys had the old show together and like you guys would respond to me, I would always say that like this speaks to me on a level because I remember growing up in the early 90s watching public access TV when you often had a show where like people could call in and be live on the air. And the way that you guys interacted through like the super chats and things like that, how like we could send through like a donation and you guys would respond directly to us, like that fed this like personal connection to me. And until I really got to know you and Jeff later on through like having long, like conversations either on the air or in DMs or whatever, early on I felt like, oh yeah, like we're definitely buddies. Like though in my mind it was just like we're probably compatible people, but I shouldn't just assume that like if I showed up at Jeff or Nick's place that they would let me crash there, or that we would go get a beer.
Yeah, that's it. Well, I mean, there is a line that there's naturally there's that line that is crossed when like if you are the creator in this sense, like you were just saying in my case, like. Like I consider like the lot of you friends because we've had a lot of like it's been extracurricular, let's say. It's not just you catch my shit and that's great. Yeah. But I mean, it would when like that the point where that line between fan, I guess and friend gets crossed, it's not always really clear. And like I remember, I don't want to name names, and I don't want like it was just weirded me out. But there was a period of time in which. After I responded to a couple comments on my videos, and this is when when my career in this sense was like on the upward trend. I noticed like on Twitter, this person changed their banner and their avatar to like still frame pictures of me. Oh, and then after every show or video, there'd be a slew of these like. Oddly photoshopped, sometimes just still framed, just like it was like super fan shit, like BTS fans, and it was honestly that was fucking too much. Yeah, and I didn't want to be that guy who's like, who tells like a dedicated fan to fuck off, But then it kept getting weirder, and then there was like. I had that chick AJ who was actually, ironically enough, like this is sort of a different thing, but when you start fucking your fans, but well, she like moved herself in here at the time, and because she was here and like she was a known part of what I was doing, she started getting a bunch of like DMs and messages like, oh, like I'd had enough one time, so I just like unfollowed this person on Twitter, and oh my god. Her DM and anybody else attached to me, their DM inbox is just filled up that day. And when you have those kind of experiences,
like, what happened? Where did Nick go? What did I do?
Yeah, what the fuck? Why? And then it turned to anger, where it was like, fuck this person, fuck him for not fucking reciprocating this like weird, sometimes like eerily kind of sexual thing going on. And it's one of those things that, like, you know, that happens, and when someone on this end goes through that, then it's kind of weird because the openness, let's say, to befriending fans, it's, you know, once burnt, twice shy kind of thing. And it's like, I don't really know. Like, I don't know. When does this get weird? Is it weird, or am I just thinking it's weird?
Yeah, well, Nick, even yours and mine friendship, that was built over a lot of tiny interactions that became longer and longer interactions.
Yeah, I was gonna comment on me and Jables becoming friends. That was Discord interactions, which slowly became like, hey, we're having long ass conversations about random shit, and I mean, it's at the point where he's basically one of the groomsmen. It would be one of the groomsmen at my wedding, assuming COVID ever goes away.
Yeah.
Like,
Like for me personally, like at least in this little group here, and like this isn't a slight against anybody or like a sort of commentary or condemnation.
I'll take
Why
it
not?
for regardless.
Come on, make it one. Make it one.
The only person that I consider like a really truly like friend of mine amongst the people here present is Addie. And that's mainly because, you know, we've known each other more intimately than I've known any of you guys. And that's not meant as a sex joke.
It doesn't have to say that way.
Not meant as one, but let's be honest.
I'm only saying it as a disclaimer for Jables. But and I said, like, it's not because of you guys I don't consider you, like, you know, oh, like we're like, you know, really great friends. At least in my perspective, it's because of myself. Because aside from Addie, like, I'm the one in this group that's kind of the most standoffish. I'm usually
You've also
not
never
around.
met any of us in person.
Well, yeah, but
Other than
aside-
Addie,
You know,
again.
I think you're scratching on an interesting point here, though, too, because like when it comes to, like, you know, I use the term performer, but just, you know, a public person with following, right? Like, if you have somebody, like, you know, that is drawn to that person because they like their work and they want to befriend the person because they are a fan, then you're in that area where, like, you know, you speak of Addie as one person you consider a close friend here, and that's because, like, your relationship and bond isn't based on necessarily like admiration for something that Addie does. It's based on, like, you know, Jables and I are friends now. You know, Jables is one of my very good friends.
But
and
the first time that you proposed that we were friends, I was like, Nick, we're more like buddies. I don't know that much about you yet.
it was funny. Like, I was an actual, like, I was it's fair to say, like, I was a fan of Vernaculus, right, back in the day. And I liked his videos and I liked his mindset. And so I was drawn to him, you know, to reaching out to him and such because of the work he was doing. And, you know, now he's like one of my, like, actual fucking best IRL friends. And I think the issue is, like, you know, it's like anything else. It's like, you know, mixed signals and expectations, even just outside of, like, parasocial relationships, just relationships in general. You know, how many times in the course of all of our lives have we gotten, like, the wrong message or gotten mixed signals about where a friendship or some kind of relationship was going?
To clarify my point, like, the position that I was going to say is that, you know, when, you know, you guys refer to me as friend, from my perspective, like, knowing me, and as I said, you know, the fact that I'm not around very often, that I don't always tend to communicate with you guys all that much, at least not so much compared to Addie, I feel like I personally have not earned that I haven't done the legwork for you to consider me as friend.
Don't worry.
I know.
I've only
But I'm
referred
just
to
saying,
you as
like,
buddy.
that's another aspect. that's another aspect of this entire thing where it's just like, oh, you're my friend, and it's like, am I really? I don't feel like I've done enough to be considered that. But
Yeah, well, and I guess that kind of comes down to definition. Well, like it was interesting actually. I had a little bit of this, like last year after I got Stanhope on the show, right? And I DM'd him a few times. Like I remember I had to like routinely check myself. I'm like I'm not his buddy. Like he doesn't even fucking know me. We talked once. It's like I met Dave Bautista once. And it's funny though, because when I see Guardians of the Galaxy, I don't think it's Dave Bautista, the wrestler turned actor. It's like, that's that guy I met on the fucking Hoover Dam one time. Like I met the guy.
We had whiskey and a very nice lunch.
Yeah,
yeah, that would have been cool. But
I would say the same thing about when I met Danny Trejo twice, because I used to live down the street from his mom. But Danny Trejo is just Danny Trejo on screen, just in person. he's the same person.
You literally saw him mowing his mom's grass.
Well, it's kind of like how Nick Cage eventually just became every character is Nick Cage with a different name.
Yeah.
Well,
but anyway, sorry. I don't want to run over Nick's point here. Sorry.
Well, no, actually, I think Addie, I think it was an interesting thing you kind of scratched on there though too, is because you say Danny Trejo is Danny Trejo, like the Danny Trejo you see on screen, and you see that's just who he is.
Yeah.
I think it was actually maybe Wednesday. Jen was on my show and said like I've met a lot of YouTubers, and a lot or most of them are nothing like they present themselves. Nick is actually just more of himself, and I think maybe there's another disconnect there, because especially if somebody's putting on an air or a persona or a character of some kind, right? That's what the audience member in this case gets to know, and that's what they expect the person is like. So they try to relate to that idea of the person without even knowing anything about what the person's actually like. So they've got that sense of a bond because something they did spoke to them, and because they're super familiar with the sound of their voice and the sight of their face, whatever. And then from there, it's just like it's a presumption that like, oh, okay, I know this person, when that person is completely artificial. Their character being played.
Yeah,
putting on a show.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that because I've like physically come in contact with Danny Trejo more than once that like I have any illusion that I have any kind of like a personal relationship with him.
I know Christmas cards, Addie, don't lie.
Okay. No, but so very quick aside. Danny Trejo, his mom, I won't dox where she lives, but it was in a college town in LA that I was living in at the time. And it just so happened that his mom's house was between where I lived and the closest gas station to me. So whenever we would have people over to drink, before people came over, we'd go to the gas station to get booze and snacks and stuff. And on one of these little sojourns, I saw Danny Trejo mowing a fucking lawn, and I'm like, what the fuck? I'm not the kind of person that gets like starstruck, so I wasn't like, oh, I should say something. I was just like, oh fuck, that's Danny Trejo. Holy shit, that's cool. But I am in LA, so that's not weird. So I just kept walking, and mind you, I'm in full dress. Like I was fully in, my trans woman vibe and all that, and I was wearing a nice skirt, and heels up, but like you could still kind of tell that I was biologically male, and this speaks to how fucking wonderful a person Danny is. As I'm walking by, he goes, "Hey, Chica," and I'm like, huh? I like turn and I goes, "Hey, you're looking really pretty today. I hope you have a good one." I'm like, "Oh, thank you." So that was our first interaction, right? Fast forward 2 months later, he's barbecuing on her front lawn, right? And as I'm walking past, he goes, "Hey, I remember you. Why don't you come over, have a beer?" And I'm like, "Oh, I can't, like that's kind of a bridge too far for me." But like, I don't think that was something he just did for me. I think Danny Trejo, like, this is the guy who loves acting so much and who loves helping people out so much. He wants to do the most with the second chance he got in his life. This is the guy who said, if you're a student filmmaker and I've got time, you don't have to have any kind of a budget. You don't even have to pay me. If the script is interesting enough, I'm in. Like, I
will do
so
your
like,
movie.
yeah, that connection that like Danny and I had, where he invited me over for a beer and some barbecue. I don't think that's because we're friends or anything. I was just like, oh, that's the kind of person he is.
Oh, you could have been if you'd gone over and had a beer and a barbecue with him.
Yeah, who knows where I'd be right now?
Well,
who knows what connections I could have made?
Well, that's kind of. I mean, one of the strangest experiences I've ever had. Honestly, has to be like a handful of times. Like I've been recognized in my own town by people I didn't know.
Yeah.
Like the weirdest, I think, like my librarian, right? Yeah, no, I was in like it was a tough time for me. I was in this real bad funk, and so I like just decided to just read all of the Bukowski I hadn't read, which was sadly most of it. And so, what is it? I went to the library to check out Post Office, and they didn't have it there, so they had to get it from another library. So, talking to the dude at the desk in this like big marble rotunda area, the librarian guy's like, "Okay, I put it in. Should be here Tuesday. We'll give you we'll send you an email or something to let you know it's here." I'm like, "Ah, thank you very much. Have a great day." I'm walking out, and as I'm walking out of this rotunda area, I hear him say, "It's always a pleasure to help a real life YouTube saint." And I stopped dead in my fucking tracks, and I'm like, I was like, "What the fuck did I just hear?" And I'm like, "Huh?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Don't," he's like, "Please," he's like, and a lot of this has happened more than once too, where they're like, "Oh, don't shout me out or anything." I just kind of lurk. I'm like, I love the show, but I don't want to put my job at risk or whatever. It's like, you're gonna get fired. Yeah. And it's like, there was another time too, around the same time, I was sitting out in front of this cafe. I'd gotten like a breakfast sandwich and a coffee, and I've got like earbuds in, and I'm on a call with a friend of mine. And this dude goes walking by, like, well dressed, young professional type, teched out. He's got like wireless fucking super Bose headphones and a smartwatch, all that shit. And I see him walk by, and I see he looks at me, and I'm like, I don't know what the fuck that was, whatever. And then like after like a couple minutes, he comes back out and he's got his lunch and shit. He stops like in front of me. I'm still on the phone, and I see him just standing there looking at me like he wanted to ask me something. So I'm like, "Can I help you?" He's like, Are you Wizard of Cause? I'm like, yeah, I am. It's nice to meet you. He's like, "Oh yeah, I'm a fan of your show and such." I'm like, "Oh, that's great. Like, what do you go by?" And he's like, "Oh no, I don't participate. I don't want to risk my job." And then, like, I heard that twice from people. But it's a strange experience there though, because like you talk about Danny Trejo. Like, Danny Trejo sounds like a genuinely just like awesome dude. Like, never met anyone he didn't like kind of guy. Yeah. And then you find out like other people aren't that. Like, I was thinking earlier, like TJ Kirk, Amazing Atheist, is a really interesting example. So you put him on a camera and a microphone, and he's boisterous and he's brash and loud, and And I was talking with Paul after he was on the show like a few months back, and he was telling me, he's like, TJ gets a really kind of weird thing, because people who know him, like people who know of him and meet him out in the world, they expect the Amazing Atheist. They expect this like foul-mouthed, fucking braggart, or blackguard, whatever the fuck. Yeah, and like the truth is, like, TJ is, from accounts I've never met him myself, but everyone has told me, like, TJ's actually like he's a really quiet dude. Like, he's a quiet, reserved, just ordinary guy. And it's funny because, like, with him, like, Paul was telling me he like people get kind of confused by that a lot. But then I'm like, it's funny because then you can think of somebody like Milo. Like, I remember back in the day, Jeff was telling me how he had dinner with Milo because he's always had such a great track record with who he associates with. But But well, it's funny because like, so he was saying Milo was like a really quiet, aw shucks kind of person in person, and that's one of those things where it seems like in his case, it's almost like his character got away with him. Like he kind of lost himself to this persona he was trying to put out, which
The
ultimately
body is
destroyed it.
lost to the other personality.
Yeah. It's like whatever kind of life he might want to have. Otherwise, it'll never be separated from that character that he played. And I think just that kind of thing plays in a lot too. Because, you know, if you've got somebody like Danny Trejo, let's say you have a Danny Trejo who is not actually friendly, but the character he plays is the guy you know. Oh yeah, he's the guy who will invite you over for barbecue, and then like you see him, he tries to say hi, he can tell you to go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's like, you know, it's like all of a sudden maybe like your illusion is shattered, or you just feel like a piece of shit somehow because you're like, oh, my fucking hero told me to go fuck myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why they tell you don't meet your heroes.
Kind of like how the Barbara Streisand effect started. Oh, everyone, it's Barbara Streisand. We all know her. We all love her. Someone puts up an image of her house. Take that down. Blows up over the internet.
No.
But I mean, it's slightly different. But it's you think you know a person, and then shit happens.
Kind of throwing my hat into these personal accounts. Now, granted, I want to preface this with I'm not entirely clear about the authenticity of the claim, but all the same, this is what happened. So, a new guy like hires on at my job, and you know, like he's there for a few days. And, you know, we're talking back and forth just a little bit every now and then. I'm not particularly sociable. But
work talk.
I was musing to myself in the back room after clocking out about what we were going to cover, because it was a Friday, and I was wondering what the show was going to be like that night. And he's like, he must have overheard me, and he's like, oh, you do a show? And I'm like, yeah, I do like it's a little podcast on Twitch. And he's like, oh, what's the name of it? He's like, I'm like, Lesser Saints of Discord. And then his eyes get like really big. And he's like, really? He's like, I'm like, yeah, I'm Sir is watching. That's my handle. And he's like, I just started watching your show last week. I'm like, oh, okay.
I remember when you told us about that.
Yeah, and I was super fucking pissed and jealous because it's like, if anybody's gonna be recognized, it should be me. Obviously, it's fucking bullshit.
Yeah, the one with the biggest ego doesn't get recognized.
Yeah.
Oh, Skull is now hosting us. Thanks, Skull.
Thanks,
Hey.
It is a strange experience though.
But like for me, like it was like on an even another level. It's just like I work with this person.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a much weirder thing. Oh.
Fortunately, he fucking no-showed after less than a week. Dude is kind of a piece of shit. So again, I don't know the authenticity of his claim, but
Really speaks to the kind of audience we cultivate, huh?
that definitely threw me for a loop. Where it's just like, holy shit! It's like my show is tiny, and did I just run into oh my god, what the fuck?
Oh man, like I don't know if it would count as I wouldn't count it as doxing or anything, but when I was working at the beer store, like early on with the Saints, right? I was still working at the beer shop, and I was like, you know, and I'd always have like a crafty that I was drinking that night, and it was like, you know, we call it a bit, but I'm sure I mentioned the name probably because like I'm not, you know, I've never been all that, you know, fucking scared of shit, but I know there was this couple of guys I think who either I said it or they just figured out where it was because like there was only one real craft beer shop at the time, but they show up at my shop during my shift and I help them out, like, and so like, you know, I'm like finding out like what they want, and Like I help them find and I upsold them a little bit. And then we get to the register, I'm ringing them out, and one of the dudes leans in, he's like, "Hey, you do that YouTube show, don't you?" I'm like, "Huh?" I'm thinking like, okay, does he see my channel or what? And he's like, yeah, the one with the other guy, right? Like that YouTube Saints thing. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, that's me. And I don't know whether because the way he did it, I wasn't sure if it was going to be like, I like your shit or like, you fucking disgust me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And no, and that was just weird though. Like that was sort of walking to your day job. And then just be like, yo, like all secretive, like. And and in retrospect, I realized they were probably like, oh, in case the boss hears or something, because everyone's like, I don't want to lose my job for what I watched on the internet for some fucking reason. Yeah. And I was just like, yeah, that was I kind of wish I'd realized that then. Like, oh no, they know I do that silly shit. That's fine.
Yeah,
but it is a strange thing though, because when you get someone coming at you like that, it's a sort of weird thing because okay, so they feel like they know you, but you don't have a fucking clue who they are, and they start talking to you like they know you.
Yeah. Because they've got all this information that they've got from watching you about
And
you.
have not.
Yeah. You have.
Yeah, that's one thing we mentioned before you came in, Nick. Do people ever come up and ask you about Quinn in person?
Oh.
No. No,
actually, glad that they're keeping that boundary. But
yeah, nobody to my recollection, I've never had anyone that I mean, yeah, but none of these I've never met you before kind of thing.
Yeah, that's different.
Yeah, when I met Jen at Kilroy, for instance, right? That was weird. Actually, that was an interesting example of this too, because I'd never interacted with, well, it was Ben at the time, but I'd never interacted with them before. And then I get this Discord DM like, "Hey, do you want some weed?" And I'm thinking, I'm in Maricopa County, and I'm getting these messages like, "Hey, do you want some weed?" from someone I've never talked to before, and it kind of sketched me out. And then at the time it was he, and he shows up and he's hands me this fucking medication bottle with some buds in it, and he's like, "Oh yeah, he's like, I kind of realized that was probably a little sketchy, huh?" I'm like, "Yeah, it was a little sketchy."
Is this a fucking undercover? Am I gonna get fucking busted if I go to this?
Yeah, and I was just like, "Oh, all right, cool." But that was interesting because right off the bat, I think there was that familiarization aspect. And I mean, I appreciate anywhere I go, if somebody hits me up and is like, "Hey, I'm in the area, do you want me to get you high?" You're like, "Fuck yeah, all right, cool." But it's it was I think it was the familiarity kind of made that seem perfectly rational, and honestly, it is too when you think about it. But then it was after that, that's how at that time I met Ben, right? I met Ben. Ben wasn't whatever the name at the time was online. It was a person that I'd met in the flesh for the first time who was hanging out at this event, and we became friends while I was there. So my friendship with now Jen, it kind of started in that weird place, and then kind of graduated in that sense. All right, now this is a friend of mine. Now I do believe at the time, I think Ben asked me something offhand about Quinn in conversation, right? But for the most part, I've never had anybody try and get too personal in that way. Usually it's "Oh, hey, wow, it's fucking cool to meet you. I love what you do." There was one fella I got recognized with. I was walking down to my bar with my friends, and I get to the corner of the street, and my buddy taps me on the shoulder. He's like, I think that dude's trying to get your attention. And I'm I look back, and this guy's stepping over the rope on the outside patio, and he's coming up. He's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, dude. I don't mean to be weird, but yeah, you're Wizard of Cause, right?" I'm like, "Oh shit, yeah, cool. Nice to meet you, man." That's usually what it is. Because like,
Yeah.
I think you'd have to be a little fucked up. You'd have to be you'd have to be a little fucked up to go that personal. In fact, that same kind of stalker person I mentioned earlier, who was like changing social media and shit. And I know at least Jables knows what I'm talking about. That was when the lines really started getting crossed. When like I'd get like a DM or I'd see a message that crossed that personal line, because it's like, unless I bring this up, there's no reason anyone should be publicly talking about it.
Yeah, or we're like in deep conversation, it reached a lull, trying to find something to grasp onto to continue conversation or something like that. I was talking more like somebody showing up, hey, I'm X and X handle. How's your daughter doing? That sort of shit is more what I'm talking about.
I have gotten that. I think I've gotten that once or twice, and it's and it's always sort of just a sort of like, it's kind of an icebreaker thing. Like, they don't mean anything by it. It's just sort of like, how's things going? And it's like, oh, well, and I know this is something that matters to this person, so like I'm gonna ask, how's that going for you?
Yeah.
Thankfully, no one's done it lately, because I'm not talking about that shit.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that as well, because like the last time I talked to you, things were different in the situation, and I have been curious, but it's also none of my business, so I didn't want to ask. So I will continue to not ask, and if you wish to share any further,
you're Streisanding the fuck out of it right now.
Yeah, everybody, talk to Nick about his personal life.
On to
anyway.
Nick,
to the all the 10 people watching.
Yeah.
By the way, I am still thinking. I just as a quick aside, I am still thinking about taking the screenshot of my when I went nuts out at one time and trying to make an NFT out of it. So
I still have that screenshot. So
I still haven't seen it. I'm upset.
I still haven't seen it either.
I don't know how NFTs work, but I'm gonna find out using my balls.
Yeah. There's a video that I checked out. It's a parasocial problem with live streaming and stuff. It's a fun thing that you can check out after this stream.
Well, like live streaming, that's kind of a different animal though too, because
yes,
I can see that definitely has to feed it, just in terms of, because you get a live interaction. Like if somebody's following and watching somebody who actually like pays attention and interacts and responds to the chat, then you get that.
It's far more easy to fall into the trap of, oh, we have this personal connection.
Yeah, because you actually kind of have a conversation in a sense, and it's live.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to breach into a little bit more.
I mean, the same. It's not just true with YouTube. I'm sure with live cam girls, it's pretty much the same thing. Yeah, you get your lonely boys who are like, oh, I'm having a conversation with you, and you respond well to these horrible things I say. Oh, that means we have a relationship, right?
We're buddies now. You can come on over and fuck my sister. How about that?
Yeah, I paid you $100 and you read out my name and the thing that I said, so that means like I can join in on the chat, right? Like I can hop into the Discord and be on the live show. I can do that.
Yeah, it's even like even when it's not like
it's a little different for us, because we allow people to like hop into the waiting room and maybe bring them on the live show. It's a little different, but
if anything, people come on, increase the quality of our show. But
it's also the sort of approach, I think, too. Most streams like the kind that we do, right? They tend to they tend to build an audience of kind of, I don't want to say super specific audience, but you build your core audience. Like I've still got like the remnants of the core of the old Saints show, but big or small. I remember even like on streams when like there'd be like fucking like 100 200 people watching or something. I'd see the regular names, and it's always good to see the regulars. And then when you see a name you don't know, and you see someone new who's like kind of joining, because like there is with this kind of shit too, especially with Discord, there is a really strong community element. It's not like we're doing fucking movies, and we go do our work on set, do that shit, it comes out, and then that's what people like, and that's what they see. It's that, like, it's live, it's community oriented, it's interactive. And when you've got that kind of thing, I know for my part at least, and I know not everybody's like this, but I get excited when I see a new name, even if it's like a troll or something, especially if they keep coming back. I'm like, hey, cool, come on, and like, come
interact,
take part in this. Yeah, take part in this. Don't just observe it, take part in it.
Did you notice Master of Snatch stopped being so much of a dick after he finally got the balls to join in on the live show?
Yeah, and then and then after the show, we sat around and talked for like an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I and that's something I like, is like I love turning hecklers and trolls like that, but I mean, at the same time, I think, like, sometimes that welcoming environment encourages certain personalities to perhaps assume too much, not just of the performer that they like, but also the community that they're a part of, for instance.
Yeah. And like, I feel like us in particular, this community that we've, I don't want to say that like we've called what.
I hate the word community, by the way. Just
I know, but
ever since community,
we can just say this social environment,
Sure, whatever. If we're gonna get hung up on the
play the euphemism game with me, come on.
Yeah.
God damn it, Rhino.
This underground sex ring that we've cultivated here. No, but no, it's like, I don't want to claim any ownership of it. I don't want to claim any credit for it, because I was a part of it. I didn't cultivate it. I was a part of this community or this circle of whatever the fuck. And it just so happened that, like I started being on the live show enough that I became like one of the more well-known characters, I guess I would say.
I think that's a fair assessment of your status.
Yeah, so that when
kind of podcast,
so that when like the Lesser Saints started, like I got the invitation to come on and host and stuff like that, and like I took up that mantle for a while, and then I started to realize that the social pressure of it was a little much for me, and that's nothing on anyone else. That's just a personal, like thing for me, where I'm like, like with my job and with my anxiety and stuff, I can't be beholden to, this kind of schedule where I have to be on, as it were, because I try to be as real as I can when I'm on the show, but at the same time, I'm not this loud. I'm not this outspoken in person.
No, I know. I love the fact that I use the same term when you're on, like when and it's not a, and I think that's like part of the craft with performing, is like being able to like turn, to flip that switch even when there's no gas in the tank,
Yeah.
But with the social pressure you're talking about, something I found I think this was a big problem in the old Saints server, like the big one where everyone is in, is in addition to just people, like when you put enough people into a given social environment of kind, like a Discord server or any kind of community, politics happen, factions evolve. It's almost inevitable. And I noticed that over time, like at times there would be certain people, like let's say, who presumed proximity to myself and Jeff, and they're like, oh well, I'm closer with the hosts, the performers here than you are, so fuck you, I've got more power. And it's just like, okay, well, first off, nobody said that. Like,
my favorite,
a lot of those were quickly followed up with me and Rimshee going, no, shut the fuck up, we're the admins.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite parts about being an admin, when someone comes in hot and goes, the rules don't apply to me because I'm friends with the actual owner. That's nice.
I met them in person before. It's like going into a comedy club and saying you're allowed to heckle because you know the owner, even though you don't.
Yeah.
I'm one of the max donators on Patreon. None of the rules apply to me.
Yeah.
that really does come back to that, to that sort of matter of perception, and that assumption, like, because and in fairness to like the people who pull those cards, right? Like in their minds, in the same way, like you meet your favorite actor one time, or you get to have a fucking Zoom call with them after you donate to a charity or some shit like that. There's that presumption there. And then if you got something that's more community based, like shows like this with their Discord servers and all this, that presumption really, it takes that next step, because they're like, oh no, like, you're a fan, I'm their friend. It's like, well, were you told that, or did you just decide that? And if you decided that, what makes you think that the rules of a given server, for instance, don't apply to my friends?
It's like oftentimes when someone makes a space like that, like a Discord server or something like that, they're kind of, I think most of us who make a Discord server, because I've got one that like me and my friends that share like a mutual hobby like hang out, and there's this expectation that like, well, because I started it in mind for people who are like-minded to me, I have this expectation of how you should behave here. Not not like I'm like gonna pound on the the sign on the wall constantly, be like, hey, I said no talking about politics or anything, but it's like there's a code of conduct, like if I was hanging out with my friends and someone just dropped like a surreptitious N-bomb, we'd all be like, whoa, it's like, like joking or not, it's like,
I like how you qualified that with surreptitious. It's like, if it's in context, then it makes sense. We're fine.
Yeah. Well, because not to brag, but I have black friends, guys. It's like, like if one of them said it, we're not going to be like, whoa, but
now we're really getting into parasocial relationships.
Yeah.
Like, did you guys
let's talk about the implications of the N-word pass for about an hour.
It's kind of like how we joke about how I'm black, but it's all based on the fact that I've got like 0.2% Congolese in my DNA, and I'm white as fuck.
Wait,
but
you related to Condoleezza Rice?
Huh?
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Fuck off, Chamber. But because of that, and because of...
I can hear the echo of Jabel's mind just going, I'm going for it. I'm going for it. I'm going for it.
Yeah, we all can.
It's not as quiet as he thinks it is. But yeah, and this whole I'm black thing started because, it started with me just joking. Oh, look, 23andMe says I'm black based on this 0.2%. And then it kind of died down, and then Elizabeth Warren comes up with her I'm Native American, and it turns out she's like, what, 164th DNA that's generally associated with South America. I'm like, well, okay, if she's Native American, then I'm black, and I can call it, and I can call I'm Jewish.
Yeah, and that's how we know Rimshee is a black Hebrew Israelite. So,
this kind of reminds me of that. I think I'm pretty sure Jables has heard this said too. When it comes to like comics, like the act, and again it comes back to like the act being one thing, the person being another, and it like so like you've heard like comics, you have like really racy acts, and then afterwards they'll get people coming up just like if they're like if they're dropping racially charged jokes, they'll get people coming up like, yeah, man, I know exactly what you're talking about. It's like, no, that was a joke. Like, you don't actually think that's really me. And actors get this too, actually. It's kind of weird, the projection. I forget, I saw it was like I think it was a documentary, I think, called like I Know That Face or something, and it's about like character actors, not your leading stars, but the people who play the roles. I always remember the guy as Drake from Aliens, but he was in he's in Rush Hour, played like the FBI guy in Rush Hour. He's been in a bunch of shit, and a lot of times he plays these really nasty villains. And he talks about this time when he's in an elevator with his daughter, and some woman's in there with him, and she turns to him and she's like, "Oh, didn't you? Oh, aren't you the guy who played this?" And he's like, "Yeah." She's like, and he's thinking like, oh yeah, hey, nice to meet you. Yeah, like yeah, I played in that thing you saw. And she just sort of like started chewing into him like, that was so disgusting. I can't. How can you live with yourself and this and that? And he's like, lady, it was a role I was playing. I'm with my kid. Come on. And that kind of assumption. That's why I like also when I hear people like Jen say like, yeah, Nick is like one of those weirdos who, when you meet him, he's just more of what you see. And I'm like, oh, okay, good. I like that way. Any bullshit I get is probably valid. But it's a weird thing like that.
I think people like what you just described, where they're gonna get on your case for a character you played. I think that stems a little more from when you're a kid and you have a harder time telling fiction from reality, and I guess some people don't grow out of that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the on Walking Dead, the actor who plays Eugene, the mullet guy. Well, actually, I found out he's actually apparently is a stand-up comic, like that comedian first and foremost. But yeah, like there was this season where like he betrayed the main cast. And he had to delete social media just because people were just going so fucking nuts, like chewing him out and sending him death threats for what character he played on a TV show was doing.
Yeah, I think that's the extreme of parasocial relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What? Just to presume that like the person who gives the act that you know that impacts you in whatever way, that like. Just for them to actually be that person.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a far cry between I went to school with famous person's kids, therefore I know famous person, versus famous person did this as this character. They're a horrible person for what they acted out doing, even though none of it actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's where I said at the top of the show, where parasocial relationships, where that term comes from, was from when TV started. And the psychologists were trying to explain this phenomenon of people believing that they know these characters, because now there's like a face and there's movement and there's voice to these fictional characters, and they were applying that to the person that played as that character, and thought that they were either friends or enemies of those characters because of the roles that they played.
It was funny because like I've been thinking about this since you asked me to come on and talk about this, and I really do think it is a mix of that, the familiarity. So if you see the TV character every week on your screen, or if you watch a YouTuber every day, like you spend so much time with this person or this character that the brain just sort of like in its pattern recognition shit, maybe it just sort of presumes that like, yes, this is a person that I know. It's like a subconscious thing, because I don't think anybody like consciously is just like, unless you're like one of those psycho BTS superfan types, I don't think anybody consciously like says to themselves like, yeah, I've seen this so much, I know who this person is. But it's tricky, because especially if you've got someone like if you listen to like a 5-hour audio book, right? Like when I got finished listening to Matthew McConaughey's Green Lights, which is an intimate autobiography, right? And the purpose of it is to make you feel like you know this person, and you feel like you do, but then you have to remember, I've never met them. They have no fucking clue who I am. And if I did meet them, I would probably get this sense that I knew them better than I actually did.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm not doing audio.
If you ever get too attached to a video game character or a TV show character, it's kind of like that.
Yeah, but that's also the difference between like knowing about somebody and knowing somebody, which is a weird line to draw, and I don't know.
Well, have you ever gotten that? Well, let me ask: have any of you ever gotten that, like, kind of in your own life, right? Like, probably when you were younger, like, so you're in, like, let's say high school, and
well, I can give a good example of this.
Well, yeah, and you travel in orbit with somebody that you've heard of, and it almost feels like you know them, even though you never met them, and finally, like, you meet at a party, right?
Well, like I said, I actually have a minor story about this, and it kind of relates to the going to school with famous person's kids. I went to school with a NFL player's kids. One was the year ahead of me. His daughter was the year ahead of me, and his son was like 3 or 4 years behind me. And so like, the school would it was a private school, and the school would put on fundraising things every so often. And so one of the things this football player would do was he'd sign sports balls for kids who made X amount of funds for the school as one of the things. And one year I just happened to be one of those kids that made that thing, probably because my parents, me not knowing this at the time, but because my parents put in enough to make sure that I could get there. And then my sister had the same thing the next year. And so I got to meet him, and it was, oh, this is cool. I've met so-and-so. I know so-and-so. I didn't know him.
Yeah.
I still don't know him.
Like, that actually, funnily enough, that reminds me of a experience from my school days. During the last few years of high school, we had this guy come into our school, and I can't remember where it was specifically, but he was like part of like the royal family of like a Pacific island. It may have even been Hawaii. Like he was somehow related to like the traditional royal family. And I actually shared a class. I actually shared a class with this guy, and he always had at least like one bodyguard with him. Like one of them was a former Marine, one of them was like a cage fighter who would like
define
all kinds
former
of other
Marine.
celebrities. Is a Marine. Are you happy? Fuck off.
No longer in the service.
Thank you, pedantic fuck Rimshee.
Could I? Oh, sorry,
And I actually kind of hung out with this guy and talked with him. To be honest, I hung out more with his bodyguards and knew them better than I knew him, but it was interesting.
Yeah.
You know, like knowing that like at any moment, like this dude that I'm sitting here having a conversation with, or like sitting here having a conversation with the guy that's sitting next to him, is just waiting to like spring into action, like snap somebody's fucking neck if they try and do something stupid.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I'm sorry. Just this is really it's an interesting timing for this. Well, like so, I've wanted to have Crypt Addie on the show for a while because I am a fan. I'm a fan of his comedy, right?
I love that.
Like
guy.
I think he's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
Doesn't follow me back, right? But I happily follow him and I laugh at pretty much everything he puts out. Well, the other day he's like, can you think of a comedian I should podcast with? Somebody like Stanhope. Stanhope's like, yeah, I'm gonna have him on we're gonna have him on my show, which is gonna be fucking awesome. But I just replied, I'm like, yeah, I'm a fucking nobody, but if you want to come dick around on late night on LS late night sometime, great. And Chris Vero's like, do it, let this asshole interrupt you incessantly for 2 hours. And I responded to her, I'm like, nonsense. Nonsense. I get bored and lazy after an hour and a half. And then I just got a DM from Donovan, and all he's saying is like, all he says is, you looking to fuck sometime?
Yeah. Perfect.
See, that right there is what we call an
I didn't-
on-brand response.
Oh no, yeah, I'm just responding, boy. I'm so full of Cialis. Name a time.
Yeah. I take Cialis every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Let's go.
Oh shit!
He's still not following back. But this is an interesting thing though. Is like I'm familiar enough with Donovan through Twitter, just seeing what he tweets and hearing his bits. That I have a familiarity with his mind, let's say, yeah.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like this is literally the first time in this just DM. This is the first time I've ever talking to him, and like I have to kind of remind myself a little bit. Just remind myself, like, yeah, okay. Keep in mind, like this, you are a fan of his work. You don't know shit about this guy other than the fact that he's bound to a fucking wheelchair and going to be doing a comedy tour in a short bus.
Yeah, and maybe some of the stuff that he's talked about with his mom with their Crip in the Cradle podcast. Like,
Yeah.
by the way, check out Crip in the Cradle podcast. It's great. It's fucking hilarious. It's just Donovan trash talking his mom for about an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, even on a lower extent, you were talking about like you hear about people in school and shit like that. There was a guy that we were virtually enemies at school. Like we didn't do anything to each other like in a rude way. We were just both like, no, we just won't get along just because of what each other had heard about each other. Well, one day I actually was in a situation where our friend groups overlapped and we were kind of forced to hang out together, and became one of my best friends after that. We just sat down and had a chat, learned more about him, didn't hate him anymore. Yeah, became really good friends. So that's the inverse of that.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Well, I guess Donovan's gonna be on the show now. Sure. He gets back to you. When works best for you, my child?
do a Friday show for sure.
Oh man.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's
Well, that's
chill.
fun.
But I mean,
Breaking news here on the Lesser Saints Discord channel. Donovan will be on the Laughing Scoundrel podcast.
At some point.
I did tell him too, though, because like my immediate ambition, like I'm getting the fuck out of New Hampshire, and I'm thinking like, wow, why don't I just get like a shuttle bus, retrofit it, and live out of it like a camper? And then I was thinking like, oh, if I did that and my act improves, maybe I could like do road gigs. And then I'm like, oh fuck, you know what I should do is I should just follow Donovan. It's open for him. Like, yeah, it's the short bus tour. Like, he's crippled and I'm just retarded.
Yeah. I'm still telling you should do bumping buttons.
Still, well, I mean, it's just really fucking interesting timing though, because right there again, like I said, like I'm a fan of his, and like I'm excited to talk to him as a fan. Now, after we like, if he jumps on and we do a show, cool. Not, maybe say buddies if we get along, and like, but that's still not like, it's not like, oh, we're not friends then. And I've seen people like, it's funny actually, since like, again, like the Stanhope thing, he was on the show once and I talked to him a little bit, and friends of mine who heard that are like, oh yeah, you're buddies with him. Like, no, not really. Like
Acquaintances make.
Yeah. Like I'm a fan of his and he's aware of me, and I need to like remind myself as a fan that's where that exists. That's where that line lives.
Yeah, it's like, so like going back to what I was saying way earlier in the show, where it's like the kind of people who we all share like a server space with, that I do DM with, tend to be people that I've had like long, like hours long conversations, either like after a show or like in a live stream together on a voice chat. Here's how even that splinters as well, because Nick and Jeff, I have both hours of like DM correspondence with, and I still, like Nick, you called me your friend earlier. This is kind of the same thing as what Sir was saying earlier as well. Where it's like I'm down to be friends, but I don't want to presume anything, because like even though you and I have had some like behind the scenes chats and stuff like that, and like I've been on the show a bunch of times and I've talked like voice to voice with you a bunch of times, I'm very wary about having that open line of conversation where it's like I could DM you at any time, but like I don't feel entitled to it, and I don't want to just assume that at any point I could be like, "Hey,
Well,
Nick, what's up?" You know, like,
well, that's that's interesting to me though, because like from my perspective, like I do consider you a friend, because like I know, you know, we in our conversations, like I've gotten to know about your life, you know things about mine, like we know each other more as people, and from my perspective, it's kind of weird, like to hear that. You know, to hear like that's a weird step for you when I've already assumed it is well, it's an interesting sort of juxtaposition in that way.
Yeah.
Like, to me, like if I get a DM, Discord, Twitter, whatever from you, it's just like, oh no, Addie's reaching out. Like, yeah. And there's that reverse kind of familiarity though, because like, you know, there's, you know, you see it with like big podcasters too, like, you know, if they have any interaction with their audience, they're what look from the outside to be like prominent members of that fan base, and it looks that way because the performer's familiar enough with them to where they interact in a personal kind of way with them. And so it's just it gives that different impression. It's just I just wanted to throw this out because I've talked about this with Jables though too, and so there is an inherent like neuroticism of sorts, like a narcissism to anyone who wants to perform, and you know, and honestly too, because just the word itself, you know, it's got a bad connotation, automatically jumps to mind, but. I found like, I mean, I've got a lot of weird fucking hang-ups and shit in my own head. And one of the things I've found I love about doing even open mic stand-up, just, you know, a room full of nobody who gives a fuck, that for a lot of performers, that one-way relationship is actually really comfortable in that, like, you know, you're communicating to these people. And it's not a two-way thing. It's you putting your shit out there. And, you know, and it's cathartic in many ways, but it's also a comfortable sort of thing for people who are like socially fucked up, which is we notice like performers tend to be.
Of all levels,
Yeah. I mean, like, because I mean, honestly, like, shit. I mean, if the most expressive comedians or writers or musicians or actors are people who quite clearly have trouble openly expressing themselves and being themselves in that kind of way, normally outside of that context. And I think maybe that dynamic actually sets up the scenario for that sort of that projection of identification, because an audience also has to submit to the performer. You know, they have to, you know, their goal is to quietly observe and enjoy what's being presented.
Yeah.
All I could think of as soon as you said that was, hear that, chat? You should submit to us.
I wanted to real quick.
There is have too, but...
Oh shit! Sorry. I don't want to keep stepping on people.
Go ahead and finish first.
I wanted to just like clarify that, like, by me saying that, Nick, I didn't want that to come across as like I rebuke your friendship or anything like that. It was just that, like, I'm, like, you said the word neurotic before, and that's kind of where I'm at, where it's like I'm hyper aware that just because I have this line of communication with you, I don't want to assume on any level. Like, now that I've heard you say, you know, that like it's a confirmation of like a friendship.
I don't think of you as an audience member.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, because like I didn't want to just assume that, oh, like, you know, like Nick and I have had these, like, that's how I qualify friendship, you know, like if you and I have had hours and hours of conversation, but like I don't want to assume that that's the way that you also see it. So like until I hear you say, oh yeah, you know, like I consider Addie a friend, then I'm like, oh, okay, you know, we just have this kind of like extracurricular connection, I guess, for lack of a more intimate term for it.
Friendship and like interpersonal relationships of any kind, they're muddy and fucking difficult to discern and fluid and all that on their own. And then when you add in additional when you add in what are effectively power dynamics, then, and that's really what it comes down to, I think, because it's not just like celebrities and shit. Like there are people who
And
worship
the
politicians.
inherent interpersonalness of internet communications.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, and then just in general, I mean, like you add any into two people relating to each other, it becomes a different thing. I mean, like for instance, there's a big difference between meeting your favorite rock star or rapper and interacting with like an amazing busker, right? Like you find the musician on a musician on the side of the fucking street blows your mind with whatever they play. You talk with them, you're talking to a busker.
Yeah.
And it's because in that sense you're even seeing then too, it's not necessarily like the appreciation of what's being done as much as it is the status of the person doing it.
Yeah, I don't want to go on.
Oh no, sir. I was
something
just
that he wanted to say.
No, I was just still sort of riffing on the idea because Jables pointed out that like with the advent of TV, that's when research started sort of discovering this sociological trend, and when but again, when you think about just like the ordinary relationships, people you orbit with and during high school kind of thing, like we talked about, or even just defining a relationship with a friend, even just a friend, like because we know about mixed messages with romance. Everyone who's ever dated has experienced it at least once. Somebody's got the wrong idea. And but I mean, even to take that out, like even like I mean, how many times in your own life have you maybe presumed a bit too much with a friend? Like it is a friend of yours, but you kind of presume a little too much and maybe take a liberty you weren't supposed to. And they're like, what the fuck? Like those things, those are much enough. So then when you add like a power dynamic where somebody's attracted to somebody for some form of
we're letting that go awry right now with like every other day there's like new allegations, where it's like that line is kind of crossed, where like people like it goes two ways. I'm not going to victim blame or anything, but it's like you need to be aware that you hold this I don't know, like this like social power over people because you're well known, like your sub count and the reach.
It really does apply to any power dynamic, as he's saying. It could be, hey, your friend is also your boss. Well, how do you separate that? Sometimes you have to Sometimes you have to figure out how to separate that. And at work, you can chat, but the moment he has to be boss, you gotta understand that. And some people have a hard time differentiating those, whether they're the boss differentiating them or the subordinate differentiating them. Like you said, politicians. There's some people who are very much like die hard for politicians, such as I'm not gonna specify anyone, but I guarantee you, everyone here can think of at least one person from each party a bunch of people in that party seem to just hold up as a beacon of perfection or something.
Sorry, I was just looking something up because I don't know. Just even when you were describing that, I was really reminded of the song "Eulogy" by Tool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, just because like it's I'm looking at the lyrics right here, and and it sort of describes having a just being affixed to like a leader, and and just like actually and like actually it's about Jesus, but it's even right there, well, actually think about that. I think maybe we could define religion, a lot of religious messiahs as sort of parasocial relationships, because to hear when you listen to like
that's a concept.
Yeah, well, I mean, you think about you hear one of those born again evangelicals talk about Jesus. Like they talk about it on such a personal level, like they feel like they study and they obsess about this character,
a man they may have never met, or they never have met, that may or may not have ever existed.
Exactly. Yeah, and but I mean, like that right there, like there's no Jesus that's reciprocating, you know. I mean, in their minds there is, but I mean,
Well,
yeah, I'm gonna say,
I mean, if their religion's right, there may be, but
yeah,
not.
if on the off chance they're correct,
That's an entirely different conversation.
That's an
Yeah,
entire From an atheist
Oh, boy.
perspective, there's no one there
But-
reciprocating. But hey,
well,
maybe
I
we're
think-
wrong.
I mean, do you think? Well, I mean, do you think that could class as a parasocial relationship?
I think that's an interesting thought. I mean, maybe, but I also
We looked at it through that lens, but I'm not sure it necessarily classifies on its own.
yeah.
That's also not something that I would. I would need to think more about that. Off the bat, I'm going to say yes.
Well,
But-
yeah. Well, I mean, this makes me think though. Could we take it a next step? Like, I mean, I'm sure if you haven't done it yourself, you've definitely known someone who has. But someone who perhaps gets so obsessed with a work of fiction, of outright fiction, and there's one character. You know, it's like the meme of like, you know, loser dudes in their 20s seeing the Joker and being like, "That's me."
Oh, there's a TED talk on YouTube. It's a TEDx talk talking about parasocial relationships, and they use Harry Potter as an example.
Well, like I've found that like when I'm at work, I'll listen to books, and I've found a couple of series that I really get invested in, and I realized the other day that holy shit, I almost feel like I get transported to this other world, and I'm living in this other world while I'm listening to the book. I'm able to bring myself back out of that and interact with the world normally. But I see what you're saying. Some people have that where they have a harder time differentiating it once they get sucked in.
Yeah.
Thank God we got
You
background
know,
music.
Well, this just
If I
is
can be
starting to
allowed
make me-
to detour back to something that was brought up earlier.
Mm.
You know, Addie was talking about this whole thing about, you know, kind of finding yourself being a character. And it made me think about, you know, like kind of how I sort of more or less accidentally, like my rise to I don't really want to say prominence, but like my rise to like more recognition, like more notoriety in this little community that we have going on was more of a thing of circumstance. Because as Addie was talking earlier, you know, like she became recognized, you know, through interacting on the show, and eventually got, you know, more noticed and known about, and then was hosting with the Lesser Saints for a while. And, you know, like my username is actually very fitting thinking about it, because I'm the perpetual lurker most of the time. It's like I don't often come into chats. You won't often see me replying to things, but I'm usually always there. But when Addie had to start dropping out of Lesser Saints more and more often, especially towards the beginning of last year with the uptick in the pandemic, you know, I basically just started showing up every Friday, kind of as like a favor to Jables and Rimshee, to give them a third person to bounce off of. That and I didn't really have anything better to do on Friday nights, except just kind of sit around by myself like I always did. And eventually, you know, like it was just through me just continuously showing up week after week that Rimshee was like, "Hey, have you ever considered just being a showrunner? Like, have you ever just considered being our co-host?" And I was like, I mean, I wouldn't object to it. He's like, "Fuck it, you're a co-host now." And it's like, all right then.
Yeah, I think that decision came after Jables and I talked about it.
Yeah.
And, you know, as I've done this show like for over a year now, just being here every week, you know, there are certain things that you play into. You know, like when I'm on the show, I'm not the exact person that I am in reality. Like, being perfectly honest, like, I do play things up a bit.
Oh, yeah, well, I mean, it's completely normal.
Like, some of my reactions to things are intentionally exaggerated for the sake of trying to entertain you guys. Because we think that you enjoy it and you think that it's funny. And so, like, I play along with it. But in reality, it's just like, yeah, this is kind of a bit. But
Kind of like
know,
our
that's
reactions to the soundboard.
well, some of those are genuine.
Yeah.
Some of them are genuine. Like, I can't remember which one it is specific. Like, all I do is when I legitimately hate that fucking soundbite.
Well,
It legitimately irritates me.
Is that
every time
because-
someone plays it.
Is that because you are?
God damn it! Son of a bitch.
You brought this on
I knew you
yourself.
were going to do that.
You brought that on yourself.
I'm aware of this.
If I could, well, I mean, if I could circle back to something I was actually just thinking about a moment ago. So it was funny. So, like, earlier, we sort of acknowledged, and I think it's a fair acknowledgement. In fact, I doubt anyone would argue that any kind of performer, anyone who tries to like put themselves out there, there's traces and elements of narcissism in it, right? So we know some of what the motivation is, like search for validation, recognition, praise, all that. I wonder though, when it comes to like what's the root of the parasocial relationship on the other side, in that, and I've had theories, and I might go outside the box on this one, but no, I've had this theory for a while that like the social nature to the human creature is a vastly underrated like motivating element, because when you think about what our technology evolved as, like most of it is about communication. We desperately want to be tapped in to others, to a zeitgeist, to like a common sort of collective mind of some sort, which is why I think like the singularity theory is totally going to happen. But I wonder if maybe like if that stands as it is, that would kind of maybe explain in a sense why the sort of parasocial relationship evolves, because a lot of it starts from a place of admiration or adulation of this other person, right? And in the presumption that they know they think they know the person based on the act and the performance that they've been given. I wonder if between like it's speaking to them personally somehow, or demonstrating some kind of like hero archetype in a way, to where it's like an archetype where they can look to and they say, this person feels the same way I do, they think the same way I do. That's a model that I can use for myself to have a better grip on maybe who I am. Because I think that's where a lot of the like urges and instincts for validation comes from, is that sort of existential problem of really coming to grips with understanding who and what you actually are, which most people never really get to do fully. And if they can project onto models that they admire, and they can use those as ways to define themselves, that could itself be like one of those links in the chain that gets forged to create this sense of intimacy that maybe doesn't actually exist.
Well, if you're gonna go down that route, you might as well just say like a lot of these parasocial relationships are formed out of trying to find a tribe that you belong to, and the famous person is essentially the chieftain spokesperson.
Or this is a weirder interpretation, if I could throw this out real quick. And I don't want to cheapen it with the implication of the notion, but like consider like electrocomplex daddy issues kind of thing. I wonder if because I know for myself too, especially since my dad died, right? When shit goes bad, I have to I sometimes like have a split second where I have to remind myself like I can't call my dad to talk to him about it, right?
Yeah.
Like if you got a decent relationship with your parents, you turn to them, because just even when you're an adult and even when you know better, a lot of times there's still that instinct to think like my parents will know what to tell me. My parent, there's someone to show me the way. And I kind of wonder if maybe like it's not an augmented kind of version of that then, where where these people who become sort of your heroes through, you know, saying what you want to hear and performing in the ways you want to see it. If it's not an attempt to actually still fill that kind of void.
I mean, I think it might be onto something with that, but I'm not prepared to like armchair psychologist any of this.
I mean, I'll do it.
That's just me speaking,
don't
though.
worry.
Yeah. That might be a thing for some people. They're just looking for guidance and a role model and things like that.
Yeah, and again too, like I always kind of love when they started saying on the spectrum when it comes to autism. Not just because it, like, you know, kind of clarifies the muddied bullshit that came before, but also because, like, even with things like this, you know, when we're talking about like psychological motivations, whether they're conscious or subconscious or primitive or advanced, you know, it's there's no way in hell it's the same for everyone. Like, you will never meet two schizophrenics who are exactly the same schizophrenic, you know? Like, it's all different. And I kind of wonder, like, you know, I think to myself, like, you know, that does sound like something that would at least work as sort of like an element, right? Because I don't think it's a central singular cause, but the way it just so naturally and commonly happens with people. I mean, sure, I'm sure a lot of people just want to be close to fame, right? You know, they want to like, oh, maybe I'll like get to be a part of an entourage, and P. Diddy will take me around in his limo and whatever. And but I think too, like, you know, the reason people are attracted to personalities that look larger than themselves, even though they're not, they're just projected on a screen in a sense. I think maybe that sort of light in the dark kind of thing might be a thing for that.
Yeah.
In which case, here's another question to add to that, though. If that is the case, even in part, where does the obligation really lie? Is it on the person who, possibly not by their own volition or choice, falls into this mindset, or is it beholden to the person who is given this attention and praise? To be cognizant of it and to be responsible with it, because they put themselves there in that position. The interpretation is on the other part of the other person. You could almost say that there was less volition and will on the part of the person developing the parasocial relationship than there actually is on the person who is the object of it.
I am actually glad that we arrived here, because I've been looking for a way to bring this up, but it's kind of like on the nose. So like I wanted to wait until, you know, there's like a less like left field kind of way to just like cram it in.
So it's not non sequitur.
Eminem.
I will be hearing you. I'm going to be quiet, but I'm going to be stepping out for smoke, but I have wireless buds, so I'm still hearing you. Okay.
Eminem is, you know, like a very obvious example of this kind of situation. We have the whole colloquialism. What?
His entire song, Stan?
Yeah, Stan. You know, like people may or may not know that that's where the term stan comes from. You know, like when someone says, oh, like we stan this, or like I'm a X thing stan. That's not meant to be an endearing term. That's meant to be someone who is fucking insane. You know, like for those that don't know, who maybe don't listen to Eminem or aren't old enough and just haven't heard the song, on Eminem's one of earlier albums in his career, he had a track called Stan, which was a like remix of a Dido song where he like rapped over the beat and all that. And it's about an obsessed fan who's obsessed with Eminem, who's named Stan. And the story of the song goes that he like looked up to Eminem, and Eminem's lyrics spoke to him, and he felt this deep connection. So like he would go to Eminem shows, but like he got more and more disillusioned with Eminem, because as he would go to the shows, Eminem like didn't notice him, or like didn't stop to say hi or sign an autograph or whatever.
And Eminem wasn't replying to the letters.
Yeah. And like
the guy that spirals into his own obsession.
I've gotten a little bit of that. Just like I've had people get angry at me, like, "Oh, I DM'd you and this and that." It's like then it has to be explained, like, "Oh, Nick doesn't really usually respond to any messages. He barely picks up his phone, you know." But yeah, no, I mean, like, I was actually, it's funny because I was thinking about that the other day. I'm like, shit. I'm like, why do people like? I stand this. It's like, why, you're fucking batshit crazy?
Yeah, don't be proud that you have an unhealthy obsession with something. Like, if it's like a meme, if you're doing it for the meme, that's one thing.
Well,
but,
this, you know what this made me think about is, because like from a different perspective, something I've thought to myself, right? Like, I think maybe it's part of this. Like, there's a blurry yet still fine line between inspiration and idolization. Like, as a writer, for instance, like, my influences are Hunter Thompson, are Charles Bukowski, fucking Kurt Vonnegut, my favorites. Those are the inspirations I have. And I've met a lot of people, and it's, you see the cosplays and people love to emulate the character of, Gonzo and all that. And I kind of realized to myself at a certain point, I'm like, okay, as an artist myself, am I trying to be this inspiration that I've come to idolize, or am I trying to be my like more of a spiritual successor, And I think, especially for people who maybe don't have creative outlets, they have no talent with music or art of any kind, and they attach themselves to the art of other artists. They think modeling themselves after that art is what they're supposed to be doing, as opposed to drawing inspiration and informing themselves as to who they really are by acknowledging what they identify with and then incorporating that into their own personality. Instead, they just want to sort of put on like a new skin.
Yeah, there's a lot of New York comedians that talk about that a lot. There was a long period of time where pretty much every up and coming comedian was just doing Dave Attell.
Yeah. Real quick, I just want to interject that I did have somewhere else I was going with the Eminem thing as well.
Sorry about that.
Go ahead. No, it's fine.
Yeah.
There's
no structure to this conversation.
Yeah. I just
don't interrupt Addie.
No.
You should. You especially.
Everybody, shut the fuck up, Addie. Go.
I'm sorry. I'm just thinking how aggravating it would be to be like an audience member when someone has a point and then it like derails off the point. No, like, I'm not accusing anyone or anything. I'm just Anyway.
Say your shit.
Okay. So the reason I bring up Stan in particular, not only because it's relevant to the conversation, it's like the most extreme version of the parasocial relationship gone awry. There's also the whole thing that like people have been giving Eminem shit for decades because he's not personable when you meet him in public. And I think that like, we live in a society where like we have this fucked up sense of entitlement to like famous people's personal space, where it's like, I bought your album, so if I see you out at lunch with your kid and I say, hey Eminem, can I get a picture? And you say, fuck off, I'm eating lunch, you're the bad guy. It's like, no, like, you shouldn't. I want there to be this pushback against the idea that you are entitled to anybody's personal space, that you are entitled to an interaction with anybody in any capacity, entitled
to their attention.
Yeah, it's, and like, I've always been very aggravated with the way that people view Eminem in this. Like I hear even some of my friends will say shit like, like, oh, like I really like Eminem's work, but like I hear he's a dickhead in real life. I'm like, well, do you mean he's a dickhead because he's got like shitty views, or do you mean he's a dickhead because, like someone said that they asked him for an autograph in the men's room and he was like, "Fuck off, I'm taking a piss." It's like,
Yeah.
There's actually I learned something kind of interesting, like locally downtown. So, New Hampshire's cultural exports are few and far between. That's safe to say. But well, the biggest thing to ever come out of Manchester, for the most part, is Adam Sandler. Right now, Sandler locally with a lot of people who like went to high school with him. I remember one of my teachers in high school went to high school with him. And was like, Adam Sandler's a fucking prick. And you do hear that a lot, and then you hear a lot of people saying like, oh, he's great, this, that. There's this woman at the bar I go to, right? And she's a crazy little old lady. Now, have any of you seen 8 Crazy Nights?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, you remember like there was like a weird old lady, I think it was a cat lady or something. It was like a sister of one of the characters, old lady, short, squat, shaped like a pear, kind of.
Yeah, she's the sister of what was it? Dumpy?
Yeah, the crazy one. Yeah. The thing is like I drink with that woman twice a week, and I had no idea. Right? She's just this crazy little old lady downtown, and like she got like Sandler put her in the film. He paid her like $20,000 for the likeness. And then paid her rent for 2 years, just because it's Linda. And the thing is, like, she did that. She got famous kind of on CNN too, because she was at a diner, and like the big diner that everyone goes to during the election. And CNN tried to interview her, like, "Who are you voting for?" Like, I don't care. I don't care. I just want my eggs. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was
Don't bother me. I'm waiting on food.
Well, it was funny because, like, so she's like, I don't even like, she's kind of, she's a crazy old lady. I don't even think she's aware of like fame, and if she was aware, I don't think she'd give a shit because she just needs to get the bus. She needs to get the bus. And and I'm not saying this to make fun of her because I adore Linda, but it's funny because, like, she's like to me, I met her and she was like just like she was like the lovable local little crazy lady who get free drinks and food at every bar she went to because everyone loved her. And then I find this shit out about her, and it was just kind of a strange thing because I realized, like, all right, then I found out like there are some people who just legit respect Linda because they know like she's had this weird cultural, like this local icon kind of thing. And to me, I'm like, oh, it's just a lovable crazy little old lady. Oh wait, fuck, she was in that movie. Holy shit. And like, I don't even dare bring it up with her because I doubt she'd know how to respond. She'd be like, what movie? What movie? Oh, Adam is a nice boy. Adam's a very nice boy. And but then it comes back to Sandler, and it's funny because like local, right? Like there are people who never met the guy, but because he grew up here and he's such a he's a revered local icon. They talk about Sandler like they see him at like, oh, he came back and he was at the diner and I saw him at the diner, and it's like, it's like that was a dude eating at his favorite diner. Like that's all that was. It wasn't the Adam Sandler. It was dude eats at diner, copy at 11. And to get people to reframe that in their heads like that, like if Sandler comes back and he sees Linda, he's buying her a fucking meal, taking her out to lunch or something, and everyone will be like, Adam Sandler's so nice for taking the time to. It's like no, it's like Adam Sandler's a dude from Manchester who knows Linda, so Sandler's gonna take Linda out for a meal. The disconnect is it's just kind of weird because like there's like multiple perspectives to consider it from. And then when you get the outsiders thinking like, oh, like, Sandler's a dick. Like I used to say, like, because I'd heard it over and over again, Sandler's a dick. Then I'm like, so I mean, what a dick. I'm like, all right, well, like, fuck it. I don't know the guy. So those are other people's opinions. And I really shouldn't be taking them with more than a grain of salt. Then on the other hand, you got guys like Sully from Godsmack, who is an abject prick. He is a fucking loathsome piece of shit. And I know this from experience. So it's like, I'm not just like, fuck Sully, Godsmack sucks. It's like, no, Sully's a piece of shit. And like, no one ever, when he used to come to the bar, no one wanted to serve him because he's a piece of shit.
Hmm.
And like, but I think maybe that's the problem though, too, is because like, I come out and say that story. For all I know, well, I know there's for a fact, there's got to be a shit ton of people in the dude's life personally who are like, oh, he's the greatest guy I know. It's like, all right, well, I've only interacted with him in these negative ways when he's been a prick in public. So if I say that now, somebody else picks it up and it's like, yeah, I heard Sully's a fucking piece of shit. It's like, well, you don't know that. Like, I say that from my perspective because I've experienced something.
Yeah.
Might not be the whole story. Also, you weren't there.
Yeah. It's like yeah. Fuck, I had something I was going to say and I just totally forgot it. Never mind, somebody else go.
just like
Right.
just like from Canucks perspective, Chad Kroeger and Nickelback are a bunch of fucking douchebags that can't play music and tried to steal his drummer.
Well,
fuck.
no. In fairness, Canuck, let's not misrepresent Canuck. Canuck said Chad Kroger's a piece of shit. The rest of the band were pretty cool.
Nope.
Or
You just said dick.
Oh, he's their dick. Okay, I'm sorry. I misrepresented you, Canuck. Yeah, they're all pieces of shit. I have it on good secondhand authority. Every member of Nickelback is a piece of shit. Fuck them.
I have it on good authority from one source that I barely know.
Yeah.
Irredeemably so, no less.
Hey, he's a
You know-
Canadian. Canadians don't lie about stuff.
Well, here's
Chad's the dick.
well, let's roll another interesting sort of question into this. Oh fuck! No, I had it. Now I lost it. Never mind.
Grow.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
back
well,
to like a town standing behind somebody famous. There's a relatively famous author that came out of my small town. I'm not going to say his name because that'll just dox me and a lot of people that I've talked about on the show. Good, like I said,
Stephen King.
Very, very, very small town. Tons of mile by a mile. So let's be very clear. I'll tell you guys. That entire town just stands by him no matter what. He's had some allegations against him of some Me Too allegations. I don't know if they're true or not, but the entire town was like, nope, not true. Definitely not that guy. And
kind of connected.
It's the whole hometown hero mentality.
We got hometown hero. I just remembered what I was thinking of before too, and I guess this kind of connects a little bit. But what about when like somebody's favorite whatever writer, actor, comic, whatever it might be, right? When like there's like an ideological thing, and they're just like, oh fuck this guy, I was a big fan for the longest time, but they have this opinion I don't like. I remember like Neil Gaiman got shit because he was like pro-feminist, and he's getting shit from like the anti-SJW set for a while because he was promoting Randy Harper. Now, like I've had Twitter interactions with Gaiman, and he's pretty much my favorite novelist. Like he's pretty much my favorite novelist right now. Yeah. And actually, the cool thing, like he actually gave me blanket permission to just read any one of his stories I want for my channel, and then I was just like,
Wow.
But
okay. So probably
well, he was getting shit for like promoting this, like it was called Feminist Deck. I remember now. Yeah, it was some like one of these dumb Kickstarter things. The chick raised like $20,000 to make a playing card deck with her favorite feminists, and they were all internet feminists, like Anita Sarkeesian and all that shit, right? And one of them was Amanda Palmer, and that's Gaiman's wife. And I looked at the project when he was promoting, and I'm like, and I just tweeted out, I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, you sure you want to be promoting something celebrating Randy Lee Harper, who's like by definition of action a shitty person? Not ideological, it's by definition of action. And he just looked at her like LinkedIn, and it said like, fighter for feminist social justice causes, this and that, and he's like, this seems pretty laudable. And like it was a Twitter thing, but I saw like he got a bunch of shit for that, and then like I realized like right off the bat, I'm like, okay, I need to remember that like this internet culture war bullshit that I was in at the time, like not everybody knows what that is. It's like kind of fringe shit at the time.
Yeah.
And so Gaiman doesn't have a fucking clue what a Randy Harper is, nor should he. Fucking like, why should this guy know? And he shouldn't be getting shit for it.
That war's still on. It's just Cold War now.
What? Yeah, well, I mean, it still goes on. Well, it was funny just because, like, months later, she got into a bunch of, like, you know, public hot water because she was, like, just shit-talking Anne Rice, who... Now, I've actually interacted with Anne Rice a few times, like, online, but she's really friendly woman, and, like, for everything I can gauge from, like, what she seems to say and believe... just a really nice old lady, right? It's like, how the fuck are you gonna fuck with this nice old lady who wrote the vampire books everybody loves? Come on. And well, like, and that was the thing, is like Gaiman ended up like somebody, like I saw in a conversation, somebody asked him like, how do you still support this person when she's attacking Anne, who's a friend of yours? And he just kind of like, well, this is my blog post on how to deal with, you know, shitty critics kind of thing. And it was just that thing, though, is like, you know, you can, like, Patton Oswalt, right? Like, he's like, he's always blustering on Twitter, like, you know, super progressive, kind of like feministy guy. And a lot of people started fucking hating him over it. And it's like, okay, well, like, why does, you know, what do they owe you? Same thing with that Gia Carino lady from Mandalorian, you know? This is kind of getting into the cancel culture thing.
Gina
but I think
Carella, I think it is.
Yeah. But I think it's a lot of this thing of people projecting expectations onto people with profiles. They get like, okay, you're gonna match up with me, and that's gonna make me. I'm gonna feel better because I know you and I are the same in this way, and that makes me better somehow.
Yeah,
like if you're in the public eye, you have to have a specific point of view, kind of thing.
Yeah, you need to remind yourself constantly as like a fan of anyone's, you know, like work or whatever. It's like they are a person, and they are going to have opinions, and they are not, you know, like it's not super likely that they're gonna 100% match all of yours, you know, and like unless they're out there like promoting the sexual abuse of minors or some shit like that, for you to like completely write them off because they're like, oh, like I voted for such and such candidate, and you're like, well, I don't like that candidate because they stand for this and that. It's like, it's not always that deep, you know, like sometimes people bluster politically on social media, and they have a puddle deep understanding of the thing they're talking about. So like if they're like pro Trump or pro Biden or pro whatever, they might not understand some of the like deeper, darker things that go with that. You know, like, oh, like if I support this person, that means by virtue of supporting them that I endorse this thing that they did. Maybe they don't know that much about them. They're just trying to be like, you know.
I wonder though,
you know,
do you think that qualifies as parasocial right there too, though? Because
I kind of do to an extent, because it's kind of like you get that knee-jerk reason where it's like, it's personal.
Like you made it personal.
You feel this personal connection. You feel this personal connection to the person's work. You're like, oh, they wrote this and it speaks to me. Therefore, we feel the same way about stuff. And then they have this diametrically opposing like worldview or like opinion on something else that's very important to you, and you feel like your friend betrayed you. And it's like, they're not your friend, and they didn't betray you. You constructed this image of them in your head where that because you share a similar outlook on this thing, or you might not even share like that piece of media that they made that you feel a connection to might not have even come from them. It could have come from a ghostwriter, you know? So like you feel this connection,
or you could be misinterpreting it.
yeah. So like that's on you. That's not on them. And when they come out with this like political take or this, you know, like some other kind of like
opinion,
like opinion that you don't agree with, it's not they betrayed you. It's you. They don't owe you shit. And they were never like, you know, it's like,
well, that also, well, I think that speaks more specifically too to that sort of that the iconography, right? If
Well-
that's, I think it's a good word to make an icon of a person, the iconography of a person. Like you build this idea in your head as to who they are as a person,
Yeah,
and
I
even by
think
the
Ruth
fact and the
Bader-
fact and the well, so just real quick, the fact that you can actually like have a non falling out with someone that you don't even know but respect from afar,
Yeah.
because your idea and your reverence for what it is they did is not the same as like when you have a personal connection with someone and you like that person for who they are, and you know this, you get over your differences because you're friends in that way. That kind of betrays that bullshit sentiment that really goes into it, isn't it?
Yeah, take
Yeah.
the current feud that I'm having with Joe DeRosa right now. Fuck that guy.
I mean, Ruth Bader Ginsburg is a prime example of iconification. Like, there's art out there about Ruth Bader Ginsburg because of her beliefs and whatnot. But she also came from a time when you could agree with her and be very, very on the same page as her because of her stance on feminism or this or that. And then, especially the 2A crowd, very, very much vehemently against her because of her stance on the Second Amendment. But at least you could respect her back then because, at least as a person. Nowadays, if you disagree with me, you're automatically evil.
Yeah, exactly. Joe DeRosa is evil. He just chips Ahoy over Oreos, and
Yeah, that's a bit. That's not a take that I agree with at all.
chips Ahoy over Oreo. Yeah.
Yeah, I find that wildly offensive. Like,
Yeah.
are you even a person at that point?
Well, it was the final straw. He had a lot of other shit takes on foods, and that one was the final straw that said, "I will never publicly agree with Joe DeRosa just out of principle."
Yeah.
Well, it really taps into the fucking art versus artist question too, though, doesn't it? Like,
Yeah.
Well, his comedy, his special "Blowing the Light" is great.
yeah, I still think it's really like on my own channel, right? When I was doing more readings of like old school public domain shit, like epic shit, like I read H.P. Lovecraft, and people were like, "Hey, that's really good. Hey, you know he was racist as fuck, right?" I'm like, wait,
Yeah.
huh? I didn't even know. Oh my god, he named his cat what? Oh, fuck.
The N-word.
All right. Well, you know what? I'll read some Rudyard Kipling. And they're like, Rudyard Kipling is racist as shit too, right? And I'm like, oh fuck, okay.
Who
You know
from
what?
back then isn't?
No, but then I go like, you know what? I'm gonna go like American. I'm gonna go poet laureate shit. All right, cool. And I read Howl by Ginsberg, and a bunch of comments coming like, oh, that's a really good reading, man. That's really good. Thanks. You know he's a pedo, right? What the fuck? Oh my god! I looked that up, and I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ! Well, it's a good thing though. Like I think about that. I'm like, he's like, so yeah, Allen Ginsberg was a fucked up piece of shit. You know, that poem Howl still kind of amazing. And then I'm thinking like, all right, well, Joss Whedon's like a fucking sex pest creeper, and before then he was like an annoying Sarkeesian social justice feminist type and whatever. Still fucking love Firefly.
Yeah,
Oh,
Firefly is
yeah.
one of my favorite works of science fiction ever.
Well, I think I think that uncoupling though, if you can uncouple the art from the artist in that way, I think maybe that might be like a kind of healthy step away from the sort of parasocial shit that tends to develop when we effectively make cults of personality for ourselves out of people whose work we admire.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with that statement.
I wouldn't even say go as far as like art and artists. Like I ran into a situation. I was doing some research on Andrew Jackson. For some reason, I was just curious about it because I heard like some stories. I wanted to see if they were true.
Mhm.
And I was just telling some dumb little facts about Andrew Jackson. Like somebody tried to assassinate him. Both guns misfired, and then Andrew Jackson just beat the shit out of the dude with his cane.
His aides had to pull him off before
And like he's been in so many duels, and then like he had a pet parrot that had to be removed from his funeral service because the parrot was swearing too much. And just funny
I think
shit
I've
like
heard that.
Yeah,
Andrew
just
Jackson's
funny.
fucking wild.
just funny shit like that. that I'm just relating to people, and then somebody just came up and was like, you know, he was also a massive racist, right? It's like, yeah. So was everybody else back then. I'm not talking about that right now.
He
I'm
was
talking
the
about
architect of the Trail of Tears. Andrew Jackson was a piece of shit. No one's arguing this.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, I'm talking about the funny shit that happened in his life, not the fucking depressing shit. Can we do that? Okay.
Well, you know, this, I don't know. That's an interesting question though, as well. Though, I mean, aside from like, you know, separating like the shitbag nature of people from the real selves, like
the art from the artist, aside from doing
well, not just
that.
not just the art from the artist, but I mean, I think sometimes maybe it's, I don't know. Well, like you think about Robin Williams, right? Like I grew up with anything Robin Williams did, I watched.
Same.
And it's like, you know, and it does feel like, you know, that's why people say, like, you know, they don't say his work was, they say he was a part of my childhood, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if you ever were to like approach him with that kind of thing, Jim Carrey's similar. It's very similar. Like these are people, like if you approach them with that, like they kind of seem to understand. Well, Williams did, and Carrey does kind of understand what you mean and kind of agree with you. And that's I don't know, in a way that you could almost say in those senses though, like that's a parasocial relationship, yet it's not a negative one. You know, if they influenced you in a positive way, and you go up and you say to them like, I've never met you before, but I feel like I've known you my whole life, and they're like, yes, good, that's what I wanted. Like it's not necessarily a negative thing until I think like the presumptions and projections really filter in.
Yeah, that's something that I think that like we all in this call failed to mention at the start of the hour, was that we're not trying to say that like parasocial relationships are inherently bad.
No.
We're more here to discuss our experiences with them and you know, like our
the various idiosyncrasies with it.
Yeah.
Just to understand them better.
Yeah. And in particular, the reason I'm involved with it was I feel like I haven't gotten to this yet. I probably should have earlier. I just want to reiterate something that I said a couple weeks ago at the end of the show. Everyone's different, and you know, that's kind of where we're at right now with you know, like talking about like Robin Williams and how he would love to hear people you know express the way that they felt watching his work, and you know, like absorbing it and feeling a connection with it. I'm one of those people personally, and I'm only bringing up me as an example because it's like practically affecting my life at the moment. I am a very timid person socially, and I have very limited, let's say, social currency, where like I get worn out very quickly. And like when I do a show or something like that, I'm on, as we stated earlier, and I'm completely open to like interaction with people and stuff like that. Barring you being someone who knows me more personally, like, you know, like Nick or Sir or Jables or anyone in this call right now, Mickey and Canuck, to name a few, who are in the chat and whatnot. I'm not that you shouldn't ever reach out to people if the avenue is available to you. I'm one of the people where I would prefer that you don't, unless I know you really well, because I get overwhelmed with like social pressure, and like growing up with my anxiety and the way that it's affected my life and shaped my personality, I don't do well with social contracts. Like, again, like this goes back to the Eminem thing, where it's like I don't feel like I owe any of our fans or any of our viewers any of my time outside of the show. But where I differ from like the Eminem approach is that I won't be aggressive about it. I won't be like, get the fuck out of my face, or, you know, like, how dare you DM me or something. But like, I just ask that you give me that space, and you don't presume that because we had an interaction in the chat or something like that, that I've opened that avenue for you to DM me privately, or like a couple days later, you know, like you get home from work and you're like, I wonder what Addie's doing, and just send me a DM being like, hey, you know, because like, hey, I don't really do like random conversations that well, especially if I don't know much about you, and I'm down to get to know you, but it's got to be organic. It can't be like, hey, I like Addie, so I want to kind of kickstart a conversation with her via DM. So I'm going to reach out and just be like, hey, what's up? I don't work that way.
Yeah, don't be like Thur and reach in her pants.
Well, even
What
a
I
lot of-
was going to say is that, and I've stated it before, you know, like Addie and I are similar in this regard, that me and her, like, we have to be social on our own terms.
Yeah.
even like as well as I know Addie, a lot of our interactions are, hey, I got a free moment, want to chat? Or, hey, I'm curious about your opinion on this. We're talking about this thing. Would you mind coming in and chatting? That's a lot of the interaction that I have with Addie. And then there's the occasional, hey, just need somebody to talk to. But
Yeah.
The vast majority of my
because
interactions,
we're close enough for that.
the vast majority of my interactions with Addie is her coming to me.
Yeah. But again, that's only because Sir opened that avenue to me. He made it especially clear that, you know, even if it's on a daily basis, if I need somebody to talk to, he'll always be there for me. And because of all the people in our, you know, like circle that we have here between the different shows and the Discord servers, Sir and I have that connection between the two of us deeper than anyone else that I know.
And like, to get a little bit personal about it, you know, like, I've basically told her multiple times, it's like, I don't give a shit what day it is. I don't give a shit what time it is. Like, if you feel like you're about to self-destruct, you're not going to do it alone. You're going to call me.
Yeah.
Well, that's, you know, I think, you know, just the way you lay it out there, though, too, that sort of like, that kind of highlights another big kind of point is like, when someone presumes to know someone better than they do, well, there's still like, there's the absence of understanding of what they're like with me, yeah, like honestly, like I will talk to anybody. Like if people want to like approach me and shit, like talk to me, whatever, DM me, whatever the fuck, like I'm down for it. But the thing is, I also don't like, I'm aloof. Like I fucking barely check my mail. If my phone rings, it's a coin toss as to whether or not I answer it, even if I recognize the number. And anybody who tries to keep in regular touch with me for the most part can tell you this. But that's just like, that's how I operate. Like, and if I do get around to it, I'm like, all right, I'll answer some messages. Oh shit, there's messages here. Hey, what's up? Sorry, whatever. Then like, but then you gotta, then you have situations like Addie described, and then like you got the other side too when you're dealing with people with much larger followings and audiences. And this is funny when you do actually get to be friends with some people. Like I consider Dankula like a buddy of mine. Like we chat,
He's a funny man.
Yeah, we talk privately about our lives to each other, and it's funny because like I'll DM him, and I know I'm not gonna hear. Typically, I won't hear back for like a week, and I know it's not because he's like avoiding or ignoring me or anything like that. It's just like the dude's constantly, because he's also really big on community engagement, so he's like constantly got fucking piles of messages, and every time he gets back to me, it's always like, oh fuck dude, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry it took me so long. And if you don't have that, like if you have like a casual sort of social media interaction relationship with somebody with a big following, and I've seen people, I've heard people complain about this differently with me. Like I've heard people like, fuck him, oh we talked a little bit and then I messaged him, he didn't message me back at all. I'm like, yeah, because I'm a fucking moron. Like I'm lazy and stupid. It's gonna happen. But it's like, there's that same thing. I think it's when you project expectations or a perception upon somebody else, and you frame it in your mind that way, you forget that there's a shit ton of things you don't know about that person in their life. There's a shit ton of like the kind of shit they can be busy with, the kind of shit that can like depress them to the point where they don't want to fucking pick up their phone or anything like that. Like that shit's all going on and you don't necessarily know about it.
Yeah. That's an excellent point to make.
That's my whole experience. Like one of the main reasons why like I don't talk to a lot of people. I don't respond to messages all that often. It's not so much that like I don't want to talk to people. It's that most of the time I'm so self-absorbed that I just completely forget about social interactions altogether.
Anyway, I think this is a good note to leave out on. If you want to finish up real quick,
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Is this like a final thoughts kind of thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was gonna close that after you were done with the Scooter started going. So.
Yeah. Okay. One of the last thoughts I had was, and I did touch on this on the rant that sparked this whole conversation. In particular, I had a couple of experiences in the last couple months where people I barely know reached out to me in DMs because of I shared the life experience that I struggle with suicide. Like I don't just mean thoughts. I mean, like I've acted on it like multiple times in my life, and it's a miracle that I'm still here. And I guess like I was pretty sure that I had made it clear that like I'm not a therapist. I'm just sharing my experience. I've had people in crisis reach out to me, and I don't know if the implication was that they wanted me to help them, but whether it was or not, I have to stress, do not reach out to someone that, whether or not you know them very well, if they don't know you, don't reach out to them with something that heavy, because they don't know you personally. They probably have no fucking idea how to help you, because they don't know, like what might be a trigger to you, what might be like sensitive, like you're playing with fire there. And also that's a lot of pressure to put on someone that let's be honest, you don't really know. I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to put too much of a point on it, but please don't do that.
It's rude.
Yeah.
Sir, your final thoughts?
Nothing in particular. I'm just glad that I could be here for this. I thought it was a very productive conversation. We got a lot covered these last 2.5 hours.
Same.
Yeah. Rimshee, or are you just still being the furniture?
I would like to
the
thank
furniture.
The audience.
I would like to thank the Academy.
I say I am standoffish. I do forget to interact with people fairly frequently, but I do appreciate all of you that come and watch and interact with us on these.
Oh yeah, that's something we forgot to touch on. We do appreciate you guys watching. Just like we are private people.
Yeah.
I'm there for the purposes of if you've got issues in like Jeff's server or something. I am always responding to stuff there, but yeah.
If
I'm
anybody new is watching, also, this is not normally how we do shows. Friday shows are just a lot more fun looking at ridiculous shit.
I guess like
Swifty 1191. Thanks for following 2 hours ago.
Yeah, thanks for
thanks a lot.
But this is not our normal show. Usually we try and be a little more entertaining. We
I
should
guess,
start picking up these serious Saturdays a little more often, maybe once a month or something, which was what we originally planned, but we got to come up with the topics.
Yeah. I guess the point I would make, like one last point I would make, is that even if we're not always available, even if we like don't know you personally or like we don't really normally talk to you guys, like you guys are the reason why we do this every week.
Yeah.
Oh, I wouldn't even go so far to say that. I just have fun doing this. You just give me
Well, I
the
mean-
motivation to keep doing it.
Yeah,
you
we
know,
do
like,
this with 0 viewers. It doesn't change anything.
I don't know, like I enjoy,
Oh,
But
yeah,
the
the interactions
motivation
are
from
great.
people viewing is a big fucking motivator. I do have to say that. So I do appreciate you guys viewing.
because I'd keep coming back just for the conversations as well. But the fact that you guys are around and you all seem to enjoy it, it's encouraging in its own way.
Yeah.
The show wouldn't be the same without you guys watching.
All right, Nick, your final
Well-
thoughts.
Well, I think we had a really good conversation about fucking parasocial relationships. It's an interesting kind of like wormhole-y topic, like a rabbit hole topic. Like, because the more you think about it, you're like, well, hang on a second, there's a lot more to it than initially you think. And again, it's like it is the nature of being a fan of a thing. And honestly, too, speaking from the performer's perspective, it's not like a universally bad thing, because we put the shit we do out there and we want you to identify with it, and we want it to strike a chord with you, and we want it to the more like it means to you, the more it means to us. It's just when you get to that, you get out of theory and you get into practice in terms of like interactions, things get a little weird, and it's a good thing to like consider and check and understand that dynamic. Now, that being said, I also want to remind everyone that this Friday, I believe this Friday, or next Friday, or however we're going to call it, the next Friday that comes up, I believe, my new best friend in the world, internet comedian, and my new best friend ever, Donovan Crypt Daddy, is going to be coming on the show.
Oh, if he's your new best friend, that means he's my new best friend too. Sweet.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, dude, we all grew up together.
Oh my god.
We all grew up together, and
God.
like, yeah, I'm gonna have a whole fiction ready by the time we get there. No, that should be fun though. Come around. I've been wanting to just hang out and like shoot with Donovan, because I know he's gonna fucking crack me the fuck up the entire
Sweet.
time.
This is why I like
And-
hosting that show. You're making my dreams come true, Nick.
And,
Watch, it's gonna turn. It's actually gonna turn out to be like, but just as a slight thing, I think it's worth bringing up. But we talk about the difference between like the character and the person. I remember the first time Rucka Ali was on the show.
Yeah.
I was expecting it to be funny. It was not funny.
Yeah,
it
Talk
was,
about Ayn Rand.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about the Fountainhead. And it's like, that's the thing. It's like, Mom always said your idols are like a box of chocolates. They're usually pretty bitter, and you regret ever opening it. So yeah, come and check out the show. It'll be fun with Donovan. And in the meantime, too, for those who hear and chew on the notions, it's good to identify with things. But if nothing else, don't try and think of yourself as being like the persona or character you find and you admire. Take the traits and elements that you admire from it, separate it from the character and the person, and then incorporate those into yourself in the best way you can, because that's a good way to idolize character, is to try and use it as a sort of a guideline for ways to be and ways to think, if they help you be better. And don't sell yourself short, because the thing is especially if you think you have good taste and the people and acts and performances you really like mean something, and you have good taste, respect them by holding yourself to a higher standard.
Yeah.
And just to close out the show, be sure to follow me on Twitter, follow Nick, follow Addie.
careful with following me. I mainly just retweet weird porn.
Yeah, it's just going to be a lot of porn if you follow Addie.
Yeah,
I
be super caught. I do
In
retweet.
SFW warning.
I just love after the whole like, don't reach out to me if I don't know you, I'm a
Yeah.
private person, and then it's like, follow Addie. Ooh, careful following me. I'm expecting like, I don't like people. It's like, you're gonna see a lot of weird shit.
Well,
Yeah.
that's another conversation entirely. Like a follow on Twitter that's already public and everything.
Well, the other thing too is that anyone that does follow me on Twitter knows that there's no like I'm not present on my Twitter. I don't personally tweet or anything.
I just like the imperative disclaimer. Yeah. It's like no. This is more serious than my perspective on social interactions. If you follow me, I'm not responsible for what you don't want to see and can't unsee. Okay?
Yeah.
I had to see it, and so will you.
You're gonna learn about like latent parts of your sexuality that you didn't even know you fucking had if you follow me on Twitter.
That is a fact.
That sounds like an assumption, Addie.
Well,
also, like if there's people you want to interact with and stuff, when they make themselves available to you, take those opportunities. Don't just try to throw yourself at them. And
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people see the whole thing like at the end of like a YouTuber's fucking like outro when they're like, "Follow me on social media." So like that's not like your friends will
I'm
DM
your
back
friend.
Or when they say, "I'd love to see your thoughts in the comments below." Like I could give you some insider and here's a little inside baseball on that one. They fucking don't.
Yeah,
interactions. Yes,
I'm looking at you, Philly D.
I would also like to close out this show fluidly without being interrupted with every sentence I say.
This sounds like a parasocial relationship has spawned.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Join us back at 4:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time next Friday. Over on this channel, check out the previous episodes over on YouTube, youtube.com/Lesser Saints of Discord. And in about an hour over in the Laughing Scoundrel, if you have Amazon Prime, I'm going to start a watch party of a comedy special I've been looking forward to watching lately. So
you mean in the Discord, right?
Yeah, in the Discord.
Yeah.
Okay, fuck no, you're like over a Laughing Scoundrel, and I'm like, wait a second, what did I agree to and when?
No, but it's only if you have Amazon Prime, because right now Discord is blocking the streaming of things from other services. So if you have Amazon, then I can start a watch party. Or maybe if you don't have Amazon, I don't know how that works exactly. Start a watch party through Amazon.
I have an idea. I'm going to pitch to you, but only after the show, after you close out.
Yes. Thank you. Be sure to check out Laughing Scoundrel podcast Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Except on Fridays.
Fridays 6. So
6 and 9, and also keep in mind on Friday, my best friends come through Donovan. We'll talk to him. It'll be fun.
Yeah, good night. We got a bunch of links down below. Click them. Do things. Yeah.
All right. Mahalo. Yeah, a bunch of links. I don't know. Oh yeah, you're talking about below Twitch. All right. Bye everyone.
Bye.